It's Monday, the, what is it, 22nd of July. Anything happened over the weekend? Not that I could think of. A coup in America. Apart from that, nothing really. What a time to be alive. Wow. How was your weekend? I hope your weekend was good. I hope it was fun. Mine was, it was okay. It was okay. I'm not going to pretend it was like, it was all right. It was, yeah. It was nice. I mean, it was low key. It was nothing. But I always, it always amazes me when broadcasters come on and go, "Oh, I did this. I did like not much." Worked. 10:30 last night. I was still at my desk working. So I hope you're all okay. What a time, as I said, to be alive. What's going on across the pond? Wow, wow, double wow. Let's put that, if we can, for 10 seconds, just to one side and introduce my special guest. Since day one, this guy and his organization have been so supportive of what I've been trying to do. Back in the early days, 6 years ago, when I first met him, he's become a pal. He's one of the smartest people I know. I know. Oh, we're just going to say, well, Liz isn't here yet, Robert Van Buren, but she's when she's finished, when they let her go, they will be. By the way, I just want to say one thing before I introduce our guest. The algorithms on Facebook and the algorithms and rules on Twitter have changed, which means these multi-billion giants are crushing little people like me. And we cannot get to all the platforms that we used to get to. So the easiest place, as you see it scrolling, take two, love, still rolling, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, go onto our YouTube platform. That's fine. Go on, subscribe, like it. That's fine. On the YouTube platform. That's just at the Midday Show, and you'll find us. That's where we are. No, because I'm not American, although my daughter is, so she could run. So there we go. Right. Time to bring on. Good morning, all from a cloudy Fife. Hey, well, I can tell you that's pretty cloudy here down in London. Hey, I don't know where that is. You know him. You've met him before. You like him. Dave Sleet. He's in the house.
Russ, good afternoon. Hi, everyone.
What could be more of a coincidence that somebody with the same surname as you makes a comment? A woman called, I don't know if you've heard of her, Sue Sleet.
Okay, no,
Sue Sleet via Bromley and the other place.
Which is Staples Corner.
Staples Corner, and now in Fife. I don't know if you know that Fife is actually twinned with Bromley. What have we got here? Rosemary Jessup. Easy, Nettie, easy. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Interesting woman, Rosemary Jessup. I always hope the weather's nice for her, because if it's too hot, she lives under a tin roof. Not joking. For some reason, she has a tin roof. So when it's hot, it's like an oven, and when it's cold, it's freezing. All right. Now then, Mr. Dave Sleet, tell us everything that we need to know about your new book, The Hive. Okay, it's nothing like that. I just wanted to do that and go, The Hive.
You've been pushing that for a while.
I have, and I don't care. I don't care at all.
Okay, so the psychological hive.
First of all, explain who you are.
Oh God, who am I? I am a psychological coach. I co-founded ANANAY Psychological Accreditation with Siobhan Crosby. Yep. And APA, for short, is the accreditation service that supports counsellors, psychotherapists, coaches, and this is where we were the first in the UK to do this. We support social workers, teachers, law enforcement, youth workers, anyone who's working with psychology in their day-to-day work.
I want to dig before we get into the book. There's something that you told me years ago, and I thought, no, I must have misheard. I must have misheard the Sleet, but I didn't. Doctors have the BMA. If you have a problem with the doctor, you go to the BMA. You can lodge an official complaint. In other words, proper psychiatrists, not counsellors, psychiatrists, have a governing body. You have to have all sorts of qualifications. If something goes wrong, you have someone to complain to who governs them.
Mm-hmm.
What shocked me rigid, because in my small way I'd never understood this, that most of these counsellors and therapists, in parentheses, they're not governed at all. They're self-regulating.
It's voluntary registers that, other than APA, are ultimately charities. And there is a voluntary register of voluntary registers that the government set up called the Professional Standards Authority.
Right.
And they ultimately oversee that the standards of those voluntary registers are applied by those voluntary registers.
Yeah, sounds really safe. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, so having voluntary registers applies to anybody in the mental health field that is not a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist. Those two professions are what's known as protected, and they are regulated. Everybody else is, in essence,
it's the Wild West and Dodge City.
Yeah. So voluntary registers should all have an ethical framework that their members apply in their day-to-day work.
Right.
And it's for those charities to enforce those ethical frameworks in practice. What we've seen across the UK is mental health sector, like you say, is a bit of a Wild West, and clients experience repeat trauma after repeat trauma by going through the therapeutic process. Because
explain. So in other words, they've got let me see if I've got this in my simplistic way. They've got a problem and they keep going back to the same sort of people, and the problem doesn't get away, it just gets exacerbated. Is that in a nutshell?
It's a bit like going into a sweet shop and you don't know what sweet to have, but you also know that you're allergic to peanuts.
Right.
But you go you pick up a Snickers bar.
Right.
Because the therapist that you go to should be connecting with you as the individual.
That's the point, and that's the plan, isn't it?
Okay. What tends to happen is, and we hear it day in, day out, I've seen 7 different therapists over the course of a year because I just don't connect with them. And ultimately that's a whole variable of reasons. But if you wanted to go to a GP, you know what you're getting. You know what to expect. With a therapist, you go in, and as you experienced, you didn't know that the sector isn't even regulated.
No. So, I mean, the thing that worries me on this show and on the previous incarnation of this show, exciting news. Liz has been let go by the BBC. I mean, they've opened the portcullis and let her out. Then they've shut it again because they've got to protect Strictly at the moment. So there's a big moat being built around Strictly. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will introduce the wonderful Liz Saul.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes,
I say let go only temporarily. I'm still gainfully employed by
No. I meant let go. They've released you. They've released you. I don't mean released you from the work. I don't mean that you have been fired. It was not a euphemism.
No.
Yeah, I like what you've done with your bedroom, by the way. It looks nice.
Oh, thank you. That's marvelous.
It's smart. So let me ask you a question, Liz.
Go on then.
You've got a brain.
Hello, Dave, by the way.
Hi, Liz.
Enough of the flirting. Enough of the flirting. Stop it.
He looks like he's been shut in the dining room.
Really much.
Oh, okay then.
Probably has. Can we move on?
Yes.
from matters suburban and household. So, did you know that that only psychiatrists, etc., are looked after by a governing body, and everybody else it's a free for all?
Yes, it's not completely regulated.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The word complete. I think we could lose the
well,
word completely.
Well, you do have, so for example, there are various, as Dave will, I'm sure, be a little more familiar with it than me, but there are various official NHS, for example, mental health services that people can access, and there will be fully qualified doctors and psychiatrists and similar of mental health. They're all regulated, but anyone could set themselves up as, say, a mindfulness coach, for example, and that is not regulated.
Ugh. The thing I was going to say before, and I was thrilled that you joined us, is this. In the course of the previous incarnation that we had of this show and now the Midday show, and also, I have to say, on the podcast, Walk the Talk, The Hero's Journey, it comes out on a Friday, every now and then we've had a guest come on, and they've set themselves up as a lifestyle coach, or this coach, or that, right? 95% a bona fide, and I think, yeah, you've really got something to say and add.
Yes.
And some of them, within, honestly, 3 minutes of starting the conversation, I think, you are an absolute scammer. You are a grifter of the first order. I wouldn't let my dog go and see you, let alone you. I'm polite.
I'm sure the dog would tell you one way or another as
well.
well.
She doesn't mess around with her. She doesn't hold back her opinions, most of which I find on the kitchen floor. But
I was going to say, I heard she was a bit mad with you at the weekend. Did you
yeah, let's not go there. Let's not go there with the grumpiest dog on the planet, who I adore, who's just asleep about 4 feet away from me. The thing is, though, some of these people have just set them. They might have tried PR. They might have tried, I don't know, window dressing. Who the hell knows? And then there are these things where they're giving advice to people that really need help, and they're not qualified to do so.
No.
And this is the thing, Russ, is a good therapist isn't there to give advice. A good coach isn't there to give advice. They're there to support that individual open up their own answers.
Liz, we can hear you clacking away like we can't believe. So it
that's odd, because the microphone wasn't on.
It sounds, I could hear it very clearly. Sounds like, yeah. Good point coming up from Graham Pack. It's this. I think it's like cosmetic operators. They're not regulated. Yeah, but let's have a Botox party. Really? Do you know what you're doing? Well, no, I don't. Oh, but inject stuff into my face, why don't you?
So let's give a bit of positivity about what there can be and what protections there can be. So affiliation and accreditation to the voluntary registers gives that first layer of protection, that individual is qualified, they are insured, they are they've got supervision in place, they've got a level of kind of protection around what they're doing, but also that the client has somewhere to go if something goes wrong. And that ultimately is as much as the government for the last 40 years has said this sector needs. Now that's changing, that the level of knowledge and understanding is changing, but the client experience is also saying we need to be able to make a complaint about a professional without the professional being kind of shielded by the voluntary register, because the voluntary register can't lose that member because that's revenue to the charity.
Right.
So one of the things that has been in existence in that affiliation and accreditation process until APA came is that it was basically a fill in a form, do hundreds of hours of voluntary work after you're qualified in order to have your qualification recognized, pay the charity a hell of a lot of money, and then you can go out and work.
What sort of amount of money? What are you talking about here? What sort of? Give us an idea.
So
A couple of £100.
yeah, if you think how long it would take to do 400 hours of voluntary work, if you had a full-time job.
Oh, right.
That's a huge investment.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That is as long as it took you to get qualified in the first place. And
Right.
the places where you can do that voluntary work invariably are other charities that are being paid to provide therapeutic professionals, but the work that's being done by that therapeutic professional is voluntary. So you see how the charity network is supporting the charity network while the professional is doing unpaid work in order to have their qualification in an unregulated sector verified. Right? If you went to college to do an
it's like
engineering
marking your own homework, really, isn't it?
Right. If you went to do an engineering course, the college wouldn't tell you you needed to sign up to this particular charity that looks after engineers. Wouldn't happen. It wouldn't be accepted. But if you wanted to do a counselling and psychotherapy course, the university, the college, the education provider would insist that you are affiliated to one of those charities. That's not allowed in any other field of education.
So how have they got away with it? And I'm using, I know, inflammatory language, but how? All right, put it in neutral terms. How has this been allowed to happen?
A lack of knowledge and a lack of resistance to say, hold up, it's voluntary. Voluntary means it's voluntary for the individual to choose where they go, not for an employer or an educator to mandate. But there's been no resistance to that because nobody was there to stand up to it when it started, and it's had 40 years to groom its place in.
Right.
So APA comes along and says, no, actually voluntary means voluntary. But in order for us to reinforce that and give people that level of protection and everything else, we have to make sure that those professionals aren't just filling in a form, being made to do voluntary work, paying us money and getting a badge. So APA is the only organisation, and Siobhan was very, very clear when we set this up. No therapeutic professional will be affiliated to APA unless they have had a direct peer review conversation with an assessor based on their knowledge, understanding, experience, and self-awareness.
And I think that's important because you just take a charity shop out the thin air, for example. Even if you're a volunteer in a charity shop, you do have to have basic training, basic understanding, being able to add up and things if you're on the till, for example. Very basic skills. Yes, it's lovely that people and these charity shops crying out for volunteers all the time. But you do still now, in this day and age, have some very basic regulation and checks and things. And so why should it be any different for this?
Yeah. And this is why the voluntary registers put those stepping stones in. APA just went a little bit further and replicated the pressure points for the professional. Because if a professional is triggered by a client, that client is going to have a negative experience. If that professional has got the self-awareness and has got the safety mechanisms around them and has got the support of its therapeutic affiliator behind them, that creates a safer environment for both professional and client. And APA raised that bar by going, we're going to have that direct conversation with everybody.
What gave you, I'm sure I must have asked you years ago, but what gave you the idea to start APA?
Siobhan came up with the idea. I was literally
behind every great man.
I tell you,
of course.
Siobhan as robust and as determined as she is, she knew exactly what was going wrong in the world of therapy. She'd been in the business for near on 20 years at the point that we started. She's now, we've gone past that now. We've both been in this arena for over 20 years. But she knew that when you've got a situation where a charity loses a resolution from a member, and their response to that is raising the voting bar beyond what any resolution has ever achieved in the past, and not tell their members that they've done that. They just raise the bar so that no resolution is likely to pass again. And they say in a meeting, we can't afford for members to have resolutions that cost us money.
Wow.
Now that says everything to us about what goes on. And Siobhan came away and went, you know what? It has to be done better. So we were delivering one of our retreats and taking some amazing professionals through some of the things that APA came to deliver. And at the end of it, she kind of just went, we can do this. We can put together a framework that is solution-based, that improves the protection. And 6 weeks later, we had a skeleton framework. 8 weeks later, we had the bones of what really APA was going to be. And within 12 weeks, we were looking at, right, when do we make this public? And we launched on the 4th of July.
Brilliant. Independence Day.
Yeah, with Will Smith.
What's interesting about that is that a very key word I think you mentioned is solutions. And very often in this day and age, let's be honest, there are some people that are lazy and they can't think for themselves, or perhaps they're in a mental state that they can't see any way out, and they need those solutions. These are the things that help people move forward. It's saying, right, darkest depths, or you just you can't think, or you're not interested in looking around. You do want that solution plopped in your lap to get going.
Yeah, and the thing with putting solutions into the infrastructure of a system is a bit like the Kevin Costner Field of Dreams line. Build it and they will come. Because we've had 40 years of an infrastructure that has got us to where we've got to in the outcomes at that point. What APA's done is go, that infrastructure does not work in the modern age. It's time to do things differently. It's time to support professionals, but it's also time to be accountable. And it's time for the public to have that knowledge that they've not been allowed to have. And companies, especially, being told what they've been told that's allowed them to run closed shop recruitment. But every time we speak to an employer and say, actually, do you realize that's closed shop recruitment? I say, no, it's a governing body. It's like, no, there isn't a governing body. So if there's no governing body, you cannot, as an employer, mandate who your employee affiliates to as a charity. That's closed shop recruitment. And as soon as they realize that, they go off, they do a little bit of research and realize that if there's a governing body and something goes wrong, the governing body does the disciplinary of that individual. If a voluntary register, the employer's on their own.
Yeah.
When they realized that everything that they thought about the protections that they were having by using that mandated affiliation to a charity doesn't exist, they're changing their recruitment.
Now, I know that Liz has got to leave in about 6 minutes because the BBC would crumble. Otherwise, it would just fall to pieces.
You can tell when Liz isn't in the office.
So Let's start talking about your new book, The Hive.
No, the psychological hive.
Oh, damn! I prefer the hive. The psychological hive.
Oh, okay. I mean, that makes more sense because you said the hive, and I was thinking, oh, my new heating and electricity.
Well, Graham Pack said this at the front of the show. He said, "Why is Dave writing about a heating system? You can transfer an app."
There you
But I didn't
go.
put that up until the appropriate moment. See, Graham?
Okay, so the psychological hive is basically the understanding of all of the elements that I discovered to exist in the most successful businesses and the most successful people all around the world. And when we look at whoever we think of as the most successful, these elements will always exist in a really high level. So success for those big companies, just as an example, has pretty much been consistent, but the rest of us, the people that go to business school and university to learn how to do business, we don't get taught all of these elements. And we don't achieve the success that these big companies achieve in their success. So the Psych Hive basically takes what is the most naturally successful structure on the planet, which is a hive.
Mm-hmm.
As an organizational structure, it has worked for billions of years and still works. Look at every business model that has been, it stems from something that's 280 years old, and it's the organizational pyramid. And no matter how many businesses of any size say, oh, we've got a flat level, we don't operate a pyramid, who pays the bills? Because it ain't the cleaner, and it ain't the kitchen porter, and it ain't the person that is coming in and day out. It's the person who doesn't go in every day who's paying the bills. Right? So there is a structure. Whatever we want that structure to be, we have this kind of tiered system. And we were taught that from the Victorians. And the Victorians used the idea of a singular alpha leader as their proof that this is how business should work. Well, it was a lie then.
What they're saying their idea was there should be some big alpha male, I'm using my words carefully, boss who tells everybody what to do, and that'll make the business successful.
Whereas actually, and more people are finding this, is that a business is more successful if it's more organic. And I don't mean by everyone eating tofu. I mean natural, instinctive, what feels right.
Yeah. So
you can still eat the steak for us. It's fine.
Taking all of the things that we've been told about that alpha male pyramid kind of structure, the Victorians told us that this is what happened in the natural world. And this was their proof that this was how humans should operate. But it was a lie then. The natural world never has a single dominant individual with any grouping.
No.
Anyway, it doesn't happen. It has dual leadership. And in business, there is dual leadership in the most successful businesses and the most.
So what about, say,
I think everyone in the business knows their place as well. If you're going to take it back to natural world, I was looking at a documentary with my dad the other day about lions, packs of lions.
I was about to say, what about a pride of lions, Dave?
Yeah, well, in this documentary, it was the female lionesses that actually were driving what would happen next. But it wasn't just one, there were two of them. And then they were sort of bringing up their young male and female lions, lionesses and cubs and things. And then there was the male lion who would see to certain things. But everyone knew their place in the pack, whether it was a cub or whether it was the alpha lioness, and everyone knew what to do in order to make that group successful.
Yeah. And lions is a really good example of how the dominance position changes based on the circumstances that the pride is in. And this is where, when I started to kind of look into this, and the research around what has become the book led me to kind of understand an awful lot more about how dual leadership works. And it's about the responsiveness to circumstance as much as it is about the structure that is in operation for any given time. So those lionesses, and as you say, Liz, everybody knows that, or every cub knows where its place is. But its place is to keep the leadership at the center of that pride.
Yes.
They're not at the top. There is very much everything centers around that leadership. And everything is there to support the leadership to stay in place. And when we talk to really successful individuals in business about their business, you will never hear the phrase, I am the head of the company. You are more likely to hear, I am the heart of the company, or I am at the core of the company. Because they understand that they have to be at the center, and everything then comes in to support them, and everything they do is to support what the business does. So you have this almost inverted kind of triangle on top of a triangle with leadership in the middle.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of what became the NCS model, which is the organizational structure that the psychological hive allows.
What's NCS stand for?
NCS stands for New Concept Solution.
Okay.
Back to solutions again.
And it's also about having this new concept, because we've been given concepts by coaches, business development executives, etc., for a long time that have got us to where we're at. But when we look at what the most successful organizations and entities do, it's very different.
Who would you think, or who have you quoted in the book as being an embodiment of a successful organization?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No. What I've done is say these exist in wherever you see success, you will see these elements. Because who I decide is successful is irrelevant. Because that's my perception.
You see, I take an exception to that, because I'm not sure if you looked at really successful companies, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak.
Yeah, but we could say Virgin, as an example, is a really successful company, right?
Well,
but on so many other areas, you would go, no, they're not.
No, not when you look at the figures.
Right. And this is where it's about the perception of the individual and how many people have invested huge amounts of money, and the publishing sector is kind of guilty of this, of going, here's a self-help guide, here is a guide on development, here's business, this, that, and the other, right? That nobody has read from cover to cover. Because it's full of authors going, this is my perception of what you should do. And people go, that doesn't apply to me. I move on, next chapter. No, it doesn't apply. I can't relate that to my life. So therefore, I'm not even going to get past chapter 3.
See, I have a real... I know I'm conscious of Liz's time.
I'm going to disappear at this point, so okay. I will catch up later on.
Liz,
I'm sure you'll manage.
But Dave, not as well.
Thank you for joining in as well and staying a bit longer than me. I do love the idea of solutions, and that it is subjective, but that doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It's about the solution.
Yeah.
Liz, bless you. Thank you so much. I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye. So off she goes, saving the BBC and Strictly Come Dancing. So here's the thing, and it's interesting you raised this point about self-help books, etc. I've tried to read like Anthony Robbins. Now, Tony Robbins is a multi-squillionaire. He fills stadiums or Stadia with people who think he's great. He's a fantastic communicator, a brilliant communicator. And I've tried to read his books because I think years ago I thought, well, every day's a school day. You want to improve. Here's a guy, hugely successful, sells books by the shed load. I couldn't get through it.
Yeah.
I couldn't get through it because I kept saying, really? No, I don't. I'm not. I could only sum it up to I'm not feeling it. I can't put it any other way. It's like, I'm not. Yeah, it's clever. And I think your presentation is brilliant, etc. Yeah, I'd kill to be Tony Robbins. Who wouldn't? Handsome, successful, rich, loved around the world. It didn't resonate with me at all.
And this is why when I was looking at, if I'm going to go into this arena, not only do I need to do it differently, there's no point in recreating the framework that is getting the results that it's getting if you want different results. So
that's Einstein's definition of madness, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. You're going to get the same result.
So the psychological hive is less than 100 pages, first off.
Oh, blimey. And it's only £32 from all good bookshops.
Not far off. But what we've done is take the key elements that I discovered that existed and explain those elements. It's up to you as the reader, or if you're going through the video versions, watching the video clips, how you apply that to your world. It's not for me to tell you how to apply. It's a bit like I design a screwdriver and then try and teach you how to use a hammer. It's pointless if I'm going to be the one going, this is how to do this. I give you the tool so that you can apply it in the way that it fits for you. The whole point of psychological awareness is you've got the answers already.
Have you? You see, this is. Oh man, I'm a meat and potatoes guy, as I find myself often saying. And someone says, "Well, the answer's within you all the time." If that were true, the world wouldn't be so messed up.
You see, this is where our education system stops us from accessing those answers. It blocks us from going, that's what I need to do, because we get fearful of, or if I do that, I'm going to upset so-and-so, or if I'm going to do that, then that's going to happen. And we get so bogged into what is the list of things that I just have to get through. And that comes down to how are we educated? How are we raised? The idea that we all have this place that we can't step out of because somebody else doesn't want us to. We're told that, if someone said to you, Russ, 8 years ago, in 2 years, you are going to be building your own radio presentation platform.
Mm-hmm.
Would that have been something that part of you went, no?
Well, because I've been doing this since 1984, I would have realized the enormous obstacles that would be. I'd look at it realistically.
Yeah.
So part of me was saying, well, you're never going to be Bauer Media, you're never going to be Global, you're not going to be Fox, you're not going to be any of these things because it takes millions and millions and millions of pounds to achieve.
Yeah.
So when you have a budget of 3 and 6pence, it's very, very hard to do that.
Yeah.
Also, 8 years ago wasn't the technology that we have now that enables me and the gang to put these shows on 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes, I would have said, I don't think that's possible. But it wouldn't have just been a knee-jerk, no, I can't do that. It would have been because of reasons.
Yeah.
I would have reasoned it out, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So you reason, you go, it can't be done because X, because we like to prove ourselves right. If we've already said, no, it's not going to be possible, then we find the rationale. If your initial reaction was, someone has come from the future to tell me that's what's happening, I need to be doing that. Yeah, come on, right, let's rationalize out all of the hurdles so I can get round them. We don't do that. We're not groomed, we're not taught, we're not brought into that understanding of how can I get round those blockages. We are taught to accept those blockages and get on with getting through the list of things that we need to do.
Speaking of lists, and this is not a non sequitur, out of all the stuff that I've read, and I really eased up on reading all these self-help books because the self-help books really are, it's an industry, let's be perfectly honest about it. And the main person they're helping is the person who's written the book and the publishers. But the most important thing I learned was writing a list. You look at, the habits of the most successful people and all that, and most of that, get up at 3 a.m. and do 72 million press ups. No, I can't do that. But writing a list, because, and it's so, I do it on a scrap of paper. It doesn't have to be anything, you don't have to buy some digital gadget on the back of an envelope. You write your list, what you want to get through and done that day. And help me out here, see if I'm right. Every time you do it, 2 things happen. You cross it out. You physically cross it out with your pen, pencil, biro, whatever. 1, you get a sense of achievement. 2, you get a little bit of an endorphin rush because, I've done that. It couldn't be as stupid as, I'm giving you something stupid. I don't know, clean the dog bowl, change the puppy pads. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't have to be, buy ICI and take over Fox Media. It can be little things, but it doesn't matter. It gives you a sense that you're being propelled in a positive way through the day. And then you look at it and you have. Would you agree with that, or is that just me blowing smoke up my own posterior?
No. And one of the things that's in the book is understanding the value of small steps.
Yeah.
And those, and it's not in the book. It's a bit of a side kind of touch. But do you remember Michael Johnson, the 400-meter runner?
No.
He used to run
because it's sport.
Okay.
It's sport.
Right. So for anyone, Michael Johnson was a world record holder at 400 meters. He ran a running style that nobody had seen before. He was bolt upright and his feet were hitting the ground more frequently than any other runner on the track. And he was phenomenal, right? Took the world by storm.
Right.
Most people couldn't understand why that was more efficient than a standard running style, right? But he was taking smaller steps, and every step was propelling him further than somebody taking larger steps. So the more he's in contact with the ground, the faster he's going. The faster he's going, the further in front of everyone else he's getting.
Yeah.
And it's very, very efficient. Physically, for the body, it's exceedingly efficient. Because when you're in the air between those steps, you're not doing anything. You can't change anything when you're up in the air. You can only make a difference when you're in contact with the ground. And this is where that list of small things, those small steps, allows you to have that contact with the ground. And it does drive you forward. I know we've talked before, and I know it's been talked about on the show previously, the US Admiral talking to recruits coming out of training school.
Not the one who dresses as a woman, though. Not that
make
one.
your bed.
Yes.
Start your day with your bed made, because it will make the last job of your day, as in getting into bed, that much easier. So start with the end in mind and work your way backwards. And this was something that I learned from reading material and the work of the guy that took the Royal Navy Task Force to the Falklands in 1982. You work backwards. You don't work forward. You work forwards. By the time you get to where you think you're going, it's out of date. Everything becomes a point of focus, not a distant target in the future. What are you doing to get that point of focus? And this is where...
So weird you say this. It's so weird you say this. I am knee deep in writing the next novel. The novel was actually finished last December.
Mm-hmm.
And we're rewriting and editing, and my agent's, cracking the whip. But it all is aimed at the end point. And I've had to work backwards completely from the denouement. The end point has always been where I've started.
Yeah.
So I get that. And the writing process, although I get a bit lost in the middle, it's all heading to that end point. How do I make sure that happens? So it's a lot less dramatic than building a business empire. I get it, but I see what you're saying.
But the principle, the process is exactly the same. The mindset is the same, and this is where whether it's as an individual or as a business, having that mindset of thinking like a hive, as in every bit is connected to every other bit. It all grows as each cell grows. You get stronger in one cell, the other cells naturally get stronger. That's the psychological hive, is by having it as kind of two sides of the same coin. So on the business side, you're working that way, but as an individual, you're also working that way. And you cannot lose a coin toss if both sides of the coin are working the same way.
Interesting. And now tell us where you can get the book.
So
do a plug. Go on, plug it away.
Okay. So the publisher today, I am told, is releasing the website. It'll be New York time. So at some point this evening, the website should go live for connectivityhive.com. And that will be the first point, and then it should be Amazon and everywhere from then on.
Excellent. So when can people get their hands on it?
So the ebook will be available as soon as the website's available, and the ebook will come with introduction videos for each of the chapters. Wow. And so you've got added material that comes with that. The hard copy will be available for pre-sale as soon as the site goes live, and I believe the target is the 28th, which is next Sunday, for the hard copy to be released.
How long did it take to write?
To piece it all together?
Yeah. Well, from the first time, because people will say, "Oh, writing, that's easy. When does it take? A month or so, a couple of weeks?" And you go, "Yeah, a few years." So from the first idea to now,
the first idea that we're not being told everything was
Christ.
I think I could probably pinpoint it to being in the hotel in Leicester Square, working in the hotel in Leicester Square. That was the start point. All of the research took 21, 22 years to get everything pieced together. To piece it into the format that we have now probably took another 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. See, unless you've done a book, you have no idea. It looks so easy.
Oh yeah.
It looks like an absolute walk in the park. It looks like a doddle. You get an idea, you scan it out, and boom, 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 boom.
And this is the
It's not.
first book that this is the first book that I've done that has been factual. This is, psychologically based. This is not fiction. But my first book was fiction, and that took me a hell of a lot longer to kind of piece out. But I wrote Finding My Peace probably 3 times before I got the final version.
See, the thing is, as with many things in life, but particularly with publications, you get one bite of the cherry. Now, I finished this next novel, as I said, last December. I was pretty pleased with it. But then, with opinions that you trust, i.e. my literary agent, it could be better. Doesn't mean it's bad, but it could be better. So then you have the debate with yourself. Do I want it to be the very best it can be? Or can I settle for this and move on to the next one, which is already 30, 40,000 words in? Well, with my makeup, it has to be the very, very best. Even though it is driving me mad, I'll be absolutely honest with you, it is causing me all sorts of problems up here. Really is. Which I can't really even explain, because I know I can do it. It's just the Dave Sleet thing of, no, you've been told you can't do it. And I'm going beating myself up that I can't, but I can do it.
Yeah. And that's the, we get given those gremlins to carry around with us.
Yeah. It's the little voice. As Neil Long says, it's always the little voice. You can't do this. You can't do this. Yeah.
And this is where I think anybody that's creative, whether it's art, music, dance, literature, all of it, we all get to that point of going, this is the best I've got to put on the table.
Yeah.
And with as much as we know, once it's there, it will do what it will do. And invariably, most of us are comfortable to accept what will come back.
But what's important to add, Dave, is that once it's there, it's out there. You can't say, oh, bugger, I forgot. You can't take it back. You can't take it back and revive it and revise it. It's out there.
Yeah.
That's it.
And
so before you press the go button, you got to be damn sure. Excellent question coming in from Graham Pack, which I will read out. Is it easier to write a factual or textbook rather than a novel, as the editors can't really mess around with it? Ooh, that's not entirely true, but editors believe me, Graham, editors can mess around with anything. They can mess around with they can mess around with the telephone directory if they wanted to. Trust me on that. Anything.
Having done both, I think you're right, Russ. It is totally irrelevant what is, what happens with editors, what happens with publishers, marketers, the whole shooting match.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
Everybody,
jeez.
And this is the thing, the anxiety. The very first time I shared the manuscript for the site Hive was with Siobhan.
Yes.
And it took a huge amount to hit that send button. No one else wasn't going anywhere, wasn't being published. But just to go, okay, this is my view.
And this is your business partner who you've been with for a long, long time. So
and this was right at the very beginning. This is it was before Appa, it was as we were getting to know each other. That very first send. That's a massive step for anybody that's creative to show
it's
their
huge.
work.
I can't tell you, my hand shakes sometimes. But this gets into a totally different area. Let's just take it out of the fact that it's a psychological hive or my book or whatever. It's how much does other people's opinion matter? Because there's a great American saying, I'm going to clean it up. Everyone's got a bottom, but we don't always want to see it. So everyone's got an opinion on something. And to go back to Graham Pack's point, just very quickly about an editor, the one thing about an editor, you've got to make sure, and there's no guarantee, by the way, that they're on your wavelength, that they get you. because they could come in from completely left field and rip your book apart because it doesn't gel with them.
Yeah.
So many people's misconception of an editor is that, oh, there should be a comma there, a full stop there, put that in brackets. Let's
Your
put
sentence
a,
is too
you know,
long.
they're not doing grammar for you, because if your grammar's rubbish, you shouldn't be, come on, you shouldn't be writing, right? What they're doing is putting their own twist on it, if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So if their version of what you're trying to produce is at variance with you, you've got a huge problem on your hands.
Yeah.
You know,
and
they have enormous power. They have enormous power, by the way, Graham. Enormous power. They can say, I don't like this character. This is, and you go, wait a minute. I asked you to edit the book. I didn't ask you to rewrite the book. But sometimes these things with publishers are taken out of your hands.
Yeah. And this is where having that team around you, and it's one of the elements within the Psych Hive, is having that team around you that is working to keep you at the center of that project, rather than put their version at the center of the project, because ultimately it's your name that goes on that book.
Your name on the tin. It's your name on the tin.
Yeah.
And you want to stand by whatever that project, new car, I don't mean buying a car, I mean, you know, developing a new car, whatever it might be, a book, a car, a restaurant, whatever, it's your name that goes on it.
Yeah.
Except and it's no good. It's no good. And it's so true. It's no good saying, well, you know, my business partner, and I agree. No. Right.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work like that. You won't end up with you know, if you're opening a restaurant, you won't want to open a, I don't know, vegetarian restaurant, and your partner wants it to be a carnivore restaurant. You've got a problem there.
Yeah. And this is where it's that anxiety of sharing and putting yourself out there for that reaction to come is always more anxious before you've done it than afterwards. Because once it's done, it's there. Like you said, it can't come back. It will do what it will do. You've built that project. You've given it legs. Now you've got to let it go out to go to school. And it is literally that simple. The anxiety is the before. Once it's out there, then you can deal with whatever comes back in. But you can't deal with what might come back in, because you don't know what might come in, because you haven't pressed the send button yet.
That's true. You're worrying about stuff which hasn't happened. Graham says this, Graham Pack, I tried to write a chapter for a political book of counterfactuals. I'm not sure what that is. And it was hacked around a huge amount by editors. Even after a few rewrites, it didn't get included in the final book. You know, if you design anything by committee, you design the best thing I ever got, you know, you set out to design a racehorse by committee and you end up with a camel, because everyone's going to have their tuppence worth to put in on that.
The new Ford Capri, Russ.
Oh, jeez. Oh,
there you go.
What the hell is, if you don't know what Dave is referring to, it's called legacy. I don't mean the brand legacy. I mean, there is legacy. So when you bring out a car with a name like Mustang has a legacy going back to the early 1960s, right? So when they brought out the electric SUV under the brand name by Ford, Mustang said, hey, wait a minute. This is a cheek. It's not a Mustang. It's a great big SUV. Very nice car, as it so happens. I'd be thrilled with one. But is it a Mustang? No, but I see what they did. So Ford have just brought out, we had in the family a Ford Capri. I loved that thing. I was a kid. I loved that car. So they brought out the new Ford Capri, right? I'm sorry, petrol head taking over here. They bring out the new Ford Capri. You're expecting to think it's going to be rakish. It's going to be this, that. No, it's an amorphous blob. It's an amorphous blob of like, what the hell's this?
If Noel Edmonds made Mr. Blobby into a car, you'd get the new Ford Capri.
I'm not saying it's not a good, nice car, but it ain't a Ford Capri. It's a Ford anything else, but it ain't. So a Toyota for next year are bringing out an anniversary Celica, right?
Okay.
Holy moly, that's how it's done. They take the essence of what was another fantastic car, the Celica, back in the day, and they brought it up to 2024, 2025. That's how you continue a legacy. You know, they haven't got the Ford Celica van. It doesn't work like that.
And this is the thing about understanding the psychological impact of what it is that they are doing. You know, they know exactly by putting that label onto this new car, they know it's going to get talked about like it would never get talked about if they called it something completely different.
It's Ford Eclipse or the whatever, the Ford.
Yeah, it's just a new
wagon.
Ford.
Yeah,
shove a Capri label on it, and everyone's going to be talking about it.
And same with and the same they did with the Mustang. It can blow up in your faces, as I was delighted to see with that Adidas, who I will never buy their products after. That is great. Did you follow that story?
No.
Didn't follow that story. All right. You want to talk about the psychological hive mentality? Have you got time?
Yeah, go.
Because we're running on a bit, but you know, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Last week, Adidas, a German company, was founded by a Nazi. And I'm not saying, German Nazi. I'm saying the guy supported the Nazi cause.
Yeah.
And one of our listeners, Graham, I think it was, sent me an email saying, do you know he had by the way, this guy's first name was Adolf. Possibly the clue was there. He had a brother who was an even bigger supporter of the Nazi cause, who founded Puma.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. They're a huge brand. Look, you know, the war was time to move on. People buy BMWs, they buy Mercedes. You know, how far are you going to take this? Your
Volkswagen.
choice. A Volkswagen. It's a car of the people. The car of the people. And you know, when Volkswagen relaunched
Porsche,
Ferdinand Porsche,
Volkswagen Beetle, and crushed it and turned it into a 911.
Oh no, my favorite car of all time. Anyway, so last week, Adidas, I'm going to watch your face when I tell you this because I'm not making it up, brought out, because it's the Paris Olympics soon, I think something horrible is going to happen. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. They brought out anniversary edition of the Munich Olympics. What happened at the Munich Olympics? The Israeli team were massacred.
Yeah.
And not just massacred, tortured, castrated. I can't even go into more details. Disgusting. You couldn't get a worse thing to have an anniversary of. Yes, you could. Who does Adidas get to be the spokesperson, the face of this relaunch of the particular trainer? A woman called Hadid, who is a huge supporter is Palestinian. Well, she's a huge supporter of Palestine and all the rest of it. It's absolutely unbelievable. It was the biggest cluster, you know what, you have ever seen.
There is nothing like attaching your political leaning behind the brand and hiding it behind a flag.
It's unbelievable. I'll come back to how it's from Grandpa. If there was a Ford Sleet, it would analyze your driving every time.
Don't tell the insurance companies, they'll start naming their little black boxes.
The Sleet. Yeah, we're going to put a Sleet in you. Anyway, so last week, Adidas realized they'd made a huge mistake having this horrible woman as their spokesperson. So they dumped her. The next day, they put out an apology. We had no idea that the Munich, you know, and I'm like, and I said on the show on Friday, I thought, what are you talking about? You had no idea. You're a multi-billion-pound brand. What, you haven't got people who do some fact checking? some 12-year-old intern who could have said, "Oh, look what happened at the Olympics." Anyway, now here's the end of the story. So the whole thing's just blown up in your face, right? Bella Hadid is now suing Adidas.
Breach of contract.
Saying she didn't know. And, it's all terrible. Yeah, right.
The opportunity, I mean, the Paris Games start this weekend, right?
Yeah.
For the first time, the opening ceremony is not going to be done in the stadium.
Yeah.
Right? Supposedly for security reasons. Now, if you're starting on that point, then something's wrong. But all of the brands, and Adidas included, and Puma, as much as I despise their history, Nike, the whole lot of them, Paris Olympics has a perfect opportunity for legacy because of Chariots of Fire.
Yeah.
Right? That's where the legacy, that's where the anniversary markers go, because that was Paris Olympics, 1904.
Whenever it was.
It's 120 years since those games.
Right.
Or 120 years, sorry. That's where the opportunity is, and that gives a massive psychological connection to a lot of what athletes connect to, because that's when modern athletics was really born at that games, because of Abraham's coach and the way he coached. And it was that developed into modern coaching regimes, etc. So the opportunities were there, but it would appear, as in the case of Adidas, it's more important to attach their own bias behind it. And it does say a lot.
It's and I will say this, and I'm not a spreader of doom, but I just look at the world and I try to take a step back and say, what do I think? It's an absolute mess in France right now. These Olympics, some might say it's come at the best time. I think it couldn't have come at a worse time. They have brought so much of this on themselves. It's a fact. As have we, as has the world. And I just hope that something horrible and awful doesn't happen. But, all bets are off with the brutality of certain sectors of society. Yeah. All bets are off.
And we saw it in Leeds earlier in last week.
Is that a hive mentality?
No.
What? When authority loses respect, look, I'm not a policeman and I'm not particularly brave when it comes. Well, it's arguable, but you're getting rocks and everything thrown at you around. They ran like hell. They ran, and that is a shocking image of dozens of policemen running.
Yeah, and it's a sad state.
It's awful. It's an awful thing to see.
It's an awful thing to see, but it is an indictment on what has happened previously, because we've got to a point where our military cannot be shouted at in training, our police cannot be shouted at in training. We've taken away real world understanding of what those jobs require and how to survive psychologically in those jobs.
In the West,
right?
Not the West's enemies.
Right. So we've gone, oh no, you can't shout at this teenager who's signed up to go to war because that's not very nice. Well, what's going to happen when they get to war?
They will find it really not very nice.
Nobody's going to be throwing cups of tea at them and saying, look, I'm really sorry we had a bad day at 11 o'clock this morning when we were throwing grenades at you, but would you like to come down, have a cup of tea and we'll talk it out before you go home tonight? The real world isn't like that. And we've taken tried to put a civilian spotlight onto the professions that have to go into the dark. And now they can't see when they go in the dark.
What frightens me is I keep saying the same phrase, nature abhors a vacuum. If the people that we respect, who are there to do a particular job, are unable to do that, it will be only, I am not advocating this. I want to be very clear. I'm not advocating this at all. But history has shown it's only a matter of time before people go, enough's enough. If you can't look after us, we'll look after ourselves. That is anarchy. Whether it's justified or not, I haven't got time to get into now. But, and then everyone will say, oh, no, you can't do that. Well, where have you been all these years? Where have you been? And this is what frightens me, because it's not something I want. I don't want to see that.
No.
I want to see that people who are in official positions doing their job correctly and properly and protecting those that they are sworn in to protect.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we will have vigilantes everywhere, and they will have huge support. Huge.
And this is where populist leaders don't come with solutions. They come with echoes of what the public fear. They spout, this is what's wrong. And I'm saying everything that the man in the pub is saying and the man down the street is saying. So the man in the street follows him because he goes, I know what you know. I know what you fear. I can speak for you. But what is that speaking for the fear delivering in solutions? Because so far, we've seen it the last, well, since 2020, we've seen the rise of, I'm going to speak for every man, but no solution. I'm just going to reiterate what everyone else is saying, but doesn't have a platform to say. So because I've got a platform, I'm going to say, you know what, we're all scared of this, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And everyone goes, yeah, he knows, he gets it. He knows what we're thinking. But agreeing with what somebody thinks and providing a solution to that problem is not the same thing. And we've seen a rise of no solution leadership because we've got tied into that vacuum of actual solution leadership.
And on that cheery note,
hopefully they'll read the book. Hopefully they'll get some answers.
It is called The Psychological Hive by Dave Sleet and will be available. And what's the name of the website? Give it one last plug.
It's going to be connectivityhive.com.
Connectivityhive.com. If I had nimble fingers, I would have put it up on the screen, but I haven't. Until we meet again, Dave Sleet, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Take care. Good luck. And there we are. If you want to follow the show, please go onto YouTube, because that's the one platform which hasn't been messed around with. And it's just the Midday show. You can see it up on the screen. Until Wednesday, have a good week. Stay out of trouble. Bye-bye.